So, Madam Usec, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that at least 2 or 3 times po you signed the checks. And this was for the amounts of 37,500,000. And you're sure that this is sourced from the confidential fund. How do we know po that this is
No, I'm not. I signed checks.
the checks?
Because when you sign checks, there's a document, there's a paper naman that says where the what fund it is.
And you mentioned that you are one of the co-signees.
But only for checks.
For the
We have
checks.
no idea what how the confidential fund is
Of course.
used.
Yes,
Or,
I'm limiting my questions purely to the checks. It's
Yes,
that which you have
yes.
personal knowledge. So you mentioned here that you signed checks related to the confidential fund, and there were documents to prove that this is in relation to the confidential
Yes.
fund. Who else were your co-signers po in the check?
Usec
Usec Ann is here. She is present. Maybe ask si Ms. Chair. We are free to ask other resource persons po naman, no? Because it's as
Yes.
in an inquiry in aid of legislation.
Yes,
Okay.
please continue.
Maybe ask Usec Sevilla. You were mentioned in this affidavit. Do you confirm that you signed these checks together with Usec Mercado?
Mr. Chair,
Usec
Sevilla.
Sevilla, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Your Honor. As part of my work as the Undersecretary for Finance, I do the ministerial task of processing and releasing payments. And for a check to be released, there should be 2 signatories. And in the designation of authorities to sign checks, all undersecretaries are authorized to do the signing of the checks. And there's a limit also, Your Honor. For example, until 10 million, that's the director level. Up 10 million and up, it's now the undersecretary. So in the case of the confidential fund, when it was processed and released, there are 2 signatories, and I confirm that one is mine and the other is Usec Glo Mercado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have confirmation of that narration, that part of the affidavit na co-signee po, the co-signer, si Usec Sevilla. Usec Sevilla, can you confirm to us how many checks po kaya ito? Just to help refresh the memory of Usec Marcolet.
There were 3.
Usec Mercado.
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, there were 3 checks that were issued per quarter. I'm getting the details, Your Honor, from our accountant who is also present. They're the one preparing the checks, but I don't have the exact details. But I remember that the release is done per quarter. And 150 million that was appropriated for 2023 divided by 4 quarters is 37.5 million. So there were 37.5 million per quarter that were issued as checks.
So we now have confirmation that tama naman po yung narration ni Usec Mercado, 2 to 3 checks. Now we have confirmation it's 3. So the total amount that she is attesting to have been signed off for is 112,500,000. Would that be a fair statement, Usec Sevilla?
Mr. Chair, I confirm that the total of 37.5 million checks is 112.5 million.
Thank you. Usec Mercado, you mentioned po in your affidavit in paragraph number 4 that you received a total of 9 envelopes. Of course, now we understand that you had apprehensions and that you had some difficulty accepting it, and we'll come back to that na lang po, no? But you mentioned here that a certain Assec, the Heya at the time, si Miss Fajarda, is she here today? No, it's not here. So si Assec Fajarda, is she still in the office of the OVP, DepEd? Would you have, no? She's with the OVP right now. Okay. And you mentioned that she would give you the envelopes. Would you recall if the envelope had a marking Hope po, no? It was
Yes,
labeled as
yes,
Hope.
Mr.
Was this
Chair.
typewritten? Was this printed?
No, it's written.
Written. Would the handwriting be familiar?
I'm still keeping those envelopes.
Oh, you still have the envelopes. Mr. Chair, may we request perhaps that these envelopes be produced as object evidence for this committee? So perhaps in a...
The envelope, I think, was already, the content of the envelope was already donated.
Yes.
But with respect to the envelope, you still have it in your possession. Tama po ba?
It's in my home.
Okay, so may we request Usec Mercado to please, dala po ba ninyo ngayon?
Hindi po.
Hindi. So siguro in the next scheduled hearing, may we request na pakidala po ninyo para mai-ano po namin.
Meron pang next schedule.
Ma'am, pakilapit lang po ninyo yung microphone para medyo clear at maliwanag po. Thank you po.
So,
Please continue. Please proceed.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that would be very helpful and we'd really appreciate if you could produce that. That would be object evidence po if talagang handwritten po yan and if we're able to prove kung kaninong handwriting. This would just serve to verify po no, the veracity of your narration. So, meron pong envelopes that were labeled Hope. They were not labeled Miss Mercado. They were not labeled Ma'am Gloria po ba? Is that how you go? What is the name that you go by po for people familiar with you?
Glo.
Glo. So it didn't say Dearest Glo. It didn't say Usec
Just
Mercado.
Hope.
Just Hope. Just Hope. Okay, I'll come back to that po at a later time. Going back po to the lunch of, you had the lunch, according to paragraph 6 po, no? You substantiated that your lunch was in Discovery Premier po ba?
And I don't recall anymore whether it's Linden or Discovery, but just within those hotels.
And you had that lunch with 2 other colleagues and then si attorney, 3 colleagues.
Yeah, one of my directors, Attorney Resty, Ucias, and 2 consultants
2 consultants. And then si Attorney Munsayac joined you
joined
at
us.
a later time. Mr. Chair, may we ask si Attorney Munsayac? Good afternoon po, sir. Sir, ano po yung position nyo at the time? You were USEC?
Good afternoon, sir. Your Honor.
Attorney Monsayac, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Honors. During that time, I was new at DepEd as Assistant Secretary for Procurement.
You were an Assec for procurement. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
And at the time, would you confirm that you were at the training? Do you recall the narration of this lunch that that Usec Mercado has laid out?
Yes, Your Honor. The very good thing about this is I kept all our conversations and it would debunk the timeline being narrated by Usec Glo Mercado here, especially about the reason she was supposedly removed by the appointing authority. And I remember that lunch. Your Honor, can I provide context for the narration?
Hopefully, Mr. Chair, may I just clarify? My question is about the lunch po. No? Yung whether or not the reason for the removal or whatever else.
Yes.
We'd like to hear that, but sir,
Yes.
perhaps at a later
Yes, sir.
time after interpellation by other members.
Yes, sir.
But my interpellation is purely on the lunch. If you could qualify the context po. Na lang.
I remember the lunch. It was a training conducted at Linden Suites regarding procurement. It was the time that, because when the first bidding, 2022 bidding was conducted, the bid opening, I was not yet an employee of DepEd. So it was conducted, I think, August. I joined DepEd at October 1. But when I was there, I saw that all the bidders...
Excuse me, can I, pwede po ba puputulin ko po muna?
Yes, Your Honor.
Attorney, nag-take ka na po ba ng oath?
Opo, take po oath kanina kasama ng mga iba pang resource
Okay.
persons.
Attorney Powa, nag-take na rin po ba kayo ng oath?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Kanina po.
Okay, so please continue.
So naalala ko po yan, nung pumasok po ako, nakita ko po yung sa original bidding ng 2022, halos lahat ng bidders nadidisqualify na. At yung 2022 funds, maglalaps na yan end of 2023. So nakita ko ho yan na nagpo-post qualification pa sila. Nandun ho si Usec Glo Mer, kasama ho si Resty Ucias. Hindi ko ho kilala yung dalawa, no? So, una ho, wala akong dahilan o interes o inclinasyon na magbigay ng isang illegal na order sa isang publikong lugar na may mga tao na hindi ko man lang kilala. Ang naaalala ko po dyan, si Resty po ang kausap ko, sabi ko, ano ang plano nyo dyan? Kasi kung itutuloy nyo yung post-qualification at maglalaps yan, hindi na aabot yan sa December 2023. So, mag-decide na kayo kung ire-rebid nyo yan. Kasi kung ire-rebid nyo yan, hindi masasayang yung pondo, mayu-utilize pa yan bago mag-end in 2023. Yan po yung mismong sinabi ko. Kumbaga, pinagde-decide ko na ho sila kung itutuloy pala nila yung post-qual nila na sobrang na-DQ na halos lahat ng mga bidder or magre-rebid na sila kasi tapos na naman yung period for post-qualification at marapit na rin mag-lapse yung 90-day maximum period for procurement. So parang sinabi ko, mag-decide na kayo kung i-rebid nyo yan kasi kung i-rebid nyo yan, aabot pa yan, hindi masasayang yung 2022 funds. So I remember that, Your Honor, Ang tanong ko lang ho, ba't naman ho ako mag-uutos ng illegal sa isang Usec na head of procuring entity na may mga kasamang tao na hindi ko man lang kilala?
Thank you for the clarification.
Can I
po.
just interject?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much, Congressman Gutierrez.
Yes, Deputy
Yeah.
Speaker.
Mr. Chair, just so that I can fix my timelines no, on my notes. At that time po, Attorney Munsayac, ano pong posisyon ang hawak ninyo?
Assistant Secretary for Procurement po ako.
So ASEC na po kayo at that time?
Assec lang po ako.
Kailan po kayo na appoint na ASEC?
Nag-assume po ako October 1, Mr. Chair, Your Honor. October 1, 2023.
October 1,
2023 po.
2023. So, head kayo ng procurement.
Ay, hindi po. May boss po ako na Usec for Procurement po.
Okay. So, but when you assume your position as ASEC, you're appointed as ASEC, no? Correct?
Opo, Mr.
You were
Chair.
ASEC for what?
Procurement po.
So for procurement. Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify that. No? Thank you. So my apologies to Congressman Gutierrez.
Please continue, Congressman Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, DS Suarez. So Usec, just to take over from there. Also, to get in line
Mr.
with that,
Chair, sorry.
I
May I just-
yield to my colleague.
Congressman
Mr. Chair,
Pamela
may I
Zamora.
just clarify kung kailan eksakto yung lunch nangyari? Sir?
Hindi ko na ho maaalala.
Kanino po
kasi-
ninyo ina-address yung tanong nyo?
Ay, kay Attorney Munsayac po,
Attorney
Mr. Chair.
Munsayac, please respond.
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, hindi ko na ho maalala yung actual lunch. Pero ang maganda po kasi dito, na-save ko ho yung mga conversation
Alright,
namin ni
so what
Usec
month
Glo.
wa-
So,
Sorry, with the indulgence of Congressman Rog, I'll just take like 5 seconds. What month was this, Attorney Munsayac, Mr. Chair?
Please continue, Attorney Munsayac.
Your Honor, I have to check on my records. Pero alam ko ho, bago pa lang ho ako sa DepEd niyan, siguro baka October lang din po yan.
Anong year
Saan
po?
ko
Anong year?
2023 po, Your Honor.
2020, okay.
Kanina si Ma'am Gloria, Ma'am, kailan niyo po sinabi, when did the lunch occur?
Usec
I
Mercado.
wasn't also very specific because I could not recall the exact date. But it should be October. All right, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please continue, Congressman Rog.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gutierrez.
Just in line po with before we go back to the substance of the dinner, the lunch itself, just for the timeline. So prior to the October 1 appointment to ASEC for procurement, ano po yung position po ninyo, Usec, ASEC?
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, I was spokesperson for the Office of the Vice President during that time. Before I assumed office at DepEd.
Since when po yung appointment po in the OVP?
Nagsimula po ako sa OVP when the Vice President assumed position.
Given that the OVP was concurrent secretary with the DepEd, would you say you are familiar with the members of the DepEd even prior to your assumption in October 1?
Ironically, Your Honor, kagaya po ng sinabi ni Usec Glo Mer, yung mga tao po sa DepEd, hindi po sila yung mga taong dating nakasama na ni Vice President Sara sa trabaho. Nag-create po talaga ng selection panel, tiningnan yung merits, tiningnan yung credentials. So, hindi ko po sila kilala. Ang ironic po, ang medyo kilala ko po talaga, si Usec Glo Mer because she's married to a fraternity brother in UP.
So, Mr. Chair, so your statement earlier is that you are not familiar with the processes of procurement, at least because you just entered as ASEC October 1. But you are familiar with Usec Glo.
Your Honor, I'm a little bit familiar with the procurement process because I used to be head of a government agency, so I oversaw everything the procurement process.
So just not familiar with this particular case. This particular-
Yes,
that's what
Your
you meant
Honor,
po.
because when I joined, the first bid opening was already conducted.
I see. So if that were the case po, no, going back then, thank you for the clarification of the timeline. Going back to the lunch, you do admit to having discussed about procurement issues. It's just you deny that it was an illegal order.
Yes, Your Honor. Bakit ko naman po sasabing pag-usapan na lang natin to sa harap ng maraming tao, sa harap ng DepEd officials. Parang ang sinasabi ko doon, mag-decide na kayo kung ire-rebid nyo yan or itutuloy nyo yung POSCA. Kasi kung ire-rebid nyo yan, aabot pa yan at mayu-utilize yan before the year end. Ba't ko naman po mag-uutos ng illegal? And Your Honor, can I elaborate on the timeline just to show that what Usec Glo Mer said earlier about the reason for her removal is
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, the SJJ.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think, with all due respect, not the resource person and the
I
witness.
apologize, Your Honor.
Oh, no, nothing to apologize for. I just want to make sure that we're giving proper direction to the questions of Congressman Gutierrez. So if the resource persons would be reminded na let's stick na lang to answering the questions as they were, and then you'll have your chance naman later on to also expound on certain events and certain timelines that you'd want to explain. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, the SJJ. Kindly continue, Congrats.
Thank you, Chairman Konghun. So yes, I do agree with DS Suarez. As much as we want to hear the timeline, perhaps at a later time, I'll just pursue my line of questioning. I'm sure
Yes, Your Honor.
some of my other colleagues would like to pursue po yung timeline ng resignation.
Yes, Your Honor,
But
Mr.
for
Chair.
the purpose of my interpellation, I'm satisfied with the answer of Usec Mercado that as to her hunch as to the reasons which she was asked to resign, and as to the timing of which, given the lunch that happened in the Lint Suites. No? I just have one more question lang po siguro, and then I'm going back now in relation to the envelopes that were labeled Hope. You were being questioned for earlier, Usec, Mr. Chair, that about your interpretation of what it meant when you were receiving these envelopes. And you mentioned you narrated in your affidavit that the envelopes were handed to me monthly by Assistant Secretary Sunshine Fajarda, which she says came directly from the office of Vice President Sara Duterte. And you mentioned that you quoted, "Galing kay VP," is what she would typically say as she hands the envelopes. What is your appreciation of that statement? Ano po yung ibig sabihin ng galing kay VP?
Mr. Chair, as I mentioned earlier, it's for me it's kasi meron naman siyang ang appreciation ko, the BP naman has other resources to share. So ganun lang kasimplistic yung tingin ko at first. It was only when I move out already that I give it a hard thought.
Of course, I mean, this is just testing to your personal knowledge. We have no idea, we have no clue kung talagang galing kay VP po yun. All that happens is that it is accompanied by that statement by Assec Sunshine.
Because, siguro kaya mo nalilink doon kasi si Assec Sunshine yung nagbibigay.
Because she was Heya at the time.
Yeah.
So you would assume from the Heya's closeness, proximity of both personal relation and by office, that she would have no reason to lie as to the source of that fund. Parang galing kay VP. But you're right, it could be a valid source, could be not. But I noticed during the interpellation of Congresswoman Luis Toro, you really had an apprehension. You said that bribery was too harsh a word. Could you expound on that thought?
I think it's just not in my language to say it's bribery because I have not experienced it.
And I would tend to agree, Mr. Chair, because generally when you speak of bribery, it's when you are offered a gift, offered compensation to entice you to do or not to do something that's within your duty. However, that's just the more general term of bribery. No? But we also have the other. We also have indirect bribery. And that's in the case when a person is offered a gift by not for any act to do or not to do, but by mere virtue of your public office. Would that be closer to what you were feeling at the time? Because there was no conversation. Walang sinabi naman po na itong envelope, gawin mo to, wag mong gawin to.
Wala
But it was
naman.
simply by virtue of your position. The envelope says it all.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And more
yeah.
colloquially, kilala ang indirect bribery as payola. Did you have an inclination na ito ay payola?
No.
So you said yes to indirect bribery but no to payola. Would you care to explain?
It's those are words that are not in my vocabulary. So if you excuse me.
Of course, I will not belabor po, no, and I have a respect for whatever semantics you choose to prove. But I'm just giving the basis on the envelope only saying hope, and there was no gift or compensation to ask of what to do and what not to do. But it was merely by virtue of your position. It would appear that you're receiving this. One last question po on that. Would you know if other employees of DepEd received the same envelope? And would you know ano po yung nakasulat sa mga envelope po nila?
No. I would know of one, but the rest I don't know.
You know of one more. Would you be at liberty to divulge? Not the identifying marks, but at least yung level, yung position po niya. Was it the Usec level, Assec level?
Assec level.
Assec level. So there would be confirmation of more than just the hope. Would you know kung ano po yung nakasulat sa envelope na yun?
No. No, we don't get to see because we're called one by one.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the good Usec for this, for her narration of the affidavit here and being forthright. I'd like to just reiterate our hope that the envelopes will be produced as object evidence for us to discuss, and I'll be yielding to other interpellators who might wish to question. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Usec Mercado, and thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
po.
Chairman.
The Chair